hockey fans, are you ready to brave the wild with me, your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Wygen? Brave the Wild is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, PodMN, Stitcher, Double Twist, of course, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and TuneIn Radio. Thank you always for joining me today. Memorial Day, May 25th, 2020, Memorial Day. So Brave the Wild always seems to pop up on holidays. Like July 4th, I seem to always wind up doing Brave the Wild on July 4th. That's usually free agency, catch up, and draft and all that. It just always seems to happen. Thanksgiving Day, that's tradition now for Brave the Wild. So Brave the Wild is just kind of a tradition. I think I've done it on Christmas Day more than once. So I've done every show on Christmas Day, I swear, like at least once or twice. Brave the Wild, Timberwolves Explosion, Purple Mafia. But thank you once again. Back talking hockey again, and there's hope that there'll be an NHL season. You got a playoff bracket going on. You know, it's moving further and further towards that. You still got the shutdown with COVID this, COVID that, and all of you know about that, and it's frustrating, and it sucks, and it's stupid. But last night, the reason why I'm on the air today, and of course I'll get caught up on other things as well, fan interaction and other just interesting bits and pieces, little nuggets here and there. But last night on NHL Network, it was just, you know, during the course of the day, New York Islanders. It was the anniversary, 40-year anniversary of the New York Islanders' first Stanley Cup, where they defeated the Broad Street Bullies. The Philadelphia Flyers had won 2 Stanley Cups about 5 years earlier, and the Bobby Clark and Brian Propp was on that team in 1980 when the New York Islanders won it all. So that New York area, of course, had a lot of special things going on in 1980. 1979, 1980, of course, you got the Isles winning, and they were actually underdogged in that series, which some of you may or may not know. Philadelphia had a far superior record. It's just that after that's when New York was usually the better team, including against the 1981 New York Islanders, who played against, or should I say faced off against, the Minnesota Northstars. And that just kind of got me going, because I saw things, and I just kept watching it closely, and it's like, you know, the way they just outclassed the Northstars time and time again throughout that game and throughout that series. It ended up being a 4-1 series in 5 games. Of course, they're just showing the 5th game where they ultimately beat the Northstars. And it's like, the frustration. Oh, of course, we don't have a Gretzky, we don't have an Yzerman, this and that. So it's kind of like you go over with Lou Nanne, this and that. But you look over the roster, of course, the Northstars didn't have a megastar on the roster, but there were quite a few good players on the team. And it's like, but there was one glaring weakness, and one of the reasons why the New York Islanders stomped all over the Northstars in that series, and they really did, and it's sad. And those of you that might want to come out and say Lou Nanne was a terrible general manager, there were times, sure. And that's kind of going to be my main focus here in segment number 1. Segment number 2, we'll get caught up with, or actually, let's just do this one segment shot. I kept debating on the fly here, and it doesn't really matter. We'll just do a one segment shot like I've been doing lately. Or I'll change it, who knows. But otherwise, we'll get to fan interaction, catching up on the Minnesota Wild, and the possibility will be facing off in a 24-team tournament to get things rolling. Kind of a little play-in deal, and then ultimately then the main playoffs will get going when things resume here, possibly in July at some point, hopefully. But this was kind of the main reason I wanted to get on the air. Of course, I was going to get caught up on something, but this is something extra. And you figure, if I'm going to get on the air at some point to talk about the Minnesota Wild, the Timberwolves, the Vikings, whatever it is, I want to wax nostalgic because, well, that's kind of the main theme right now. And I want to talk a bit about that 1981 Stanley Cup final and a lot as to why the Minnesota Northstars got pounded in that series. Now, to talk about Lou Nanne, and you get on the air, and you want to talk about Lou Nanne, and some people might think, he wasn't a very good GM, this and that. He missed out on, he could have drafted this guy, he could have drafted that guy. Things could have been so much better. And, sure, things could have been better in a lot of ways. But there were other situations that popped up. How disappointing. The noise upstairs is just getting started again. They weren't here, and now they're here. Isn't that just life? Sorry for bringing that onto the air, but I had to. Disappointing. Some things are just very disappointing. But, man, it is what it is, isn't it? When you look at Lou Nanne, though, generally speaking, which is where I was going before I got distracted by something. Unwanted guests will say, right? I know I'm naughty. I had to say it. I'll just leave it on there. It's something for you to laugh at, I suppose. Bobby Smith, he wasn't this superstar. He had his great moments, but he wasn't this great superstar. But at the end of the day, you look at the draft in 1978, and not many people really were up there. Bobby Smith ended up having the highest career point numbers of all the players in the draft. In fact, he was the only guy to really reach 1,000 points. A couple of sleepers as you get further and further into the 11th round and stuff. Wow. Some of them really hung on and such. But generally speaking, it's just unfortunate we didn't get the number one pick in the draft in 1979 because, we could have had Wayne Gretzky, which would have been unbelievable. But sometimes that's just how it goes. You look at the Minnesota North Stars, though, and the glaring weakness, and I'm going to get to it right now. One of the main reasons why the North Stars would lose so handily to the New York Islanders, of course, the Islanders were a dynasty, right? But it's like you think, why can't we have at least competed with them? But here's the thing. This is what set me off and why I jumped on the air. Who was their captain? Who was the captain of this team? Who was the captain of the Minnesota North Stars in 1981 in the Stanley Cup Finals and playoffs and all that? Paul Schmier? Paul Schmier? What? Some 34-year-old defenseman who had 10 points in 61 games, 1 goal in the season. And it's not like the offense necessarily, but who the bleep is Paul Schmier? I mean, what is he, cream cheese or something? Schmier. He was Schmier. That's great. It wasn't spelled the same as, Schmier, like cream cheese and all that. But Paul Schmier, I was like, that was the captain. Wow. And here's the reason why Paul Schmier was the captain of the team. Of course, he was 34 years old. But this is the unfortunate part. This is where the bad luck comes in, and also one of the reasons why the North Stars got to the finals in the first place. Bobby Smith, 93 points, was only 22 years old. Yep, you had some decent veterans, but yeah, Steve Payne, very good player, 22. Al McAdam, okay, 28, but he wasn't the captain for some reason. Tim Young, only 25. But a lot of the main stars that really were the main reason why the North Stars went all the way. Dino Ciccarelli, 20 years old. Kurt Giles, 21. Brad Maxwell, only 23. Brad Palmer, who didn't do a whole lot afterward, but he was promising. He was a first-round pick and stuff. 18 years of age. Yeah. He had an okay goalie in Gilles Malesh. I mean, he was decent. He was 30, but they relied much more, the North Stars anyway, on Don Beaupre. Well, a very familiar name in the North Star circles. He was 18. Don Beaupre was only 18 years of age. So it was literally kids against the New York Islanders. So you might as well have tried to replay the Olympics again. It just, unfortunately, it just wasn't the case. There was no miracle on ice this time around for Minnesota, but there was for New York, I guess, because it took place in New York, and that Cup final ended in New York also, which, much to our chagrin, was the case. So sometimes that's just how that goes at the end of the day. But back to the point, Neil Brodin, only 20 years of age. He'd only played 3 games in the regular season, but got 2 goals. So obviously off to a nice start, and what a great career he ended up having. It's one good player after another, of course, including the goalie. But if you're going to talk about an 18-year-old goalie, a 20-year-old right winger who, again, recovered from a nasty femur injury like a year or so before, obviously was one of the MVPs of the postseason. He would have been the Conn Smythe winner in Dino Ciccarelli if the North Stars won the Stanley Cup. A smallish defenseman who was so valuable, but again, 21, and Kurt Giles. You know what? See, these guys at this age are the reason, at this age and their talent level, a combination of their age and their talent level are the reason why the North Stars got to the Cup finals. But it's also, unfortunately, the reason why they did not win the Stanley Cup. It's a combination of both because, see, they were young, super talented, and loosey-goosey. There was no pressure on these guys. There's no pressure whatsoever. See, as the years go forward, the team got better, they won more games, and they would lose early. And then they get to the conference final in '83 against the Edmonton Oilers a couple years later, only to get swept by a future dynasty. Now that Edmonton team went up and lost to the New York Islanders, and the next year was a rematch, and Edmonton finally dethroned the New York Islanders, and they started winning Stanley Cups, 4 out of 5 to be exact. In the Edmonton Oilers case, before Gretzky and his wife ended up moving to Los Angeles, California. But of course, that was, at the end of the day, a tough situation where the Los Angeles Kings basically bought Gretzky from the Edmonton Oilers. Very strange situation. Strange. There's all kinds of stories you heard over the years that we thought that Gretzky's wife wanted to be an actress, and that's why he wound up in L.A. I don't know. One way or another, he wound up in L.A., and that screwed things up, unfortunately, for the Edmonton Oilers. It's just too bad. As good as this Northstars team was, there were dynasties in the way, like Edmonton and such. And then, of course, bad draft picks that took place as well. Brian Lawton, instead of multiple players after him that could have had a much better run. It's just a darn shame. And then again, Paul Shamir is your captain. I mean, there was just no leadership, unfortunately. I'm not sure, though. I mean, somebody else, like a Steve Payne, only 22. Again, see, that's another player who was only 22. He was drafted the same year as Bobby Smith in the second round. Nice draft by Lou Nanne there, to be quite honest. McAdam was 28. Why he wasn't a captain, I don't know, instead of Paul Shamir. But I guess Shamir earned it with his tough effort. Mike Polish had some moments, but not really good numbers. He was just kind of a lower-end guy, unfortunately. Obviously, only 16 points, 13 points, pardon me, on the season. Again, great Gophers career and all that. Absolutely awesome Gophers career, but just unfortunately not much of a success rate at the National Hockey League level. 62 points for the Gophers in only 42 games as a senior for the 1975 Gophers, who unfortunately lost in the National Championship game. They were good, and then things just went south very quickly for that club. But no, I mean, it's like you want to wax nostalgic, you want to look at things. It's like Lou Nanne put a good team together when there was no pressure on them. They went all the way, and then when the pressure was on the next year, they won the division, and they lost to the Blackhawks right away. That Blackhawks team, you could argue, was actually almost worse than it was. It was a bigger upset almost than, say, what the Northstars did to the Blackhawks 9 years later. Of course, in '91, when the Northstars were fourth place, and what did we have, like 68 points? And I am still saying we. You betcha I'm saying we. Only 68 points. That is nothing, man. You know, and ties still gave you a point back then. You didn't have the shootout losses that would give you a point, which is just extra, generally speaking. But that's nothing. I mean, that Blackhawks team had the best record in the league, and the Northstars upset them. It was almost an equal type of an upset 9 years earlier where the Blackhawks upset the Northstars. So none of us should feel bad for what we did to the Blackhawks 9 years later. That's for damn sure. It's just a bummer, and it's just I wanted to analyze that and have a conversation about it. Most of us are too young to remember the 1981 Cup final. I mean, I'm too young, but I got to sit down, analyze the situation, and that's the conclusion I came up with. And, you know, I was a damn good hockey team that unfortunately ran into a freight train, and there's just a reason why the Northstars didn't compete with that club, because Philadelphia competed with the New York Islanders. I mean, it went to Game 6 at least, and it almost went to Game 7. What if Philadelphia scored instead of New York? What if it wasn't Tonelli to Nystrom at the end of the day, to Mr. Nystrom? Ended up leading them to a Stanley Cup championship. What if that wasn't the case? Bob Nystrom. I keep wanting to mix him up with Dan, because obviously Dan played for the Wild. And it's like, which one was Bob? Which one was Dan? Well, Bob was the older man. I guess Bob sounds like an older man than Dan typically, but not always. But it just kind of is what it is when you look at the whole situation. Obviously, great New York team, New York Islanders, all that. And it was cool to see that. Now they're showing the frickin' New Jersey Devils sweeping the bleeping Detroit Red Wings. I don't like either team, but at the time I liked New Jersey more because they hadn't won yet. Now, all these years later, when they'd won 3, screw the New Jersey Devils, man. I don't want them to win anything, and I don't want Detroit to either, frankly. Though now you almost kind of root for Detroit because they had the worst record the last couple of years. Where am I going with this? I don't know. I mean, it's fun to wax nostalgic, to look at things, analyze the situation. I mean, Gilles Smolesh was a decent goalie. There was a lot more hope riding on Don Beaupre, but again, an 18-year-old goalie in the final against a dynasty. Craig Hartisberg was also a very good player. Hartsburg, only 21. So it's like you look at the youth. It shows you Lou Nanne put together some pretty good group of players in just a couple of years. I mean, most of these guys were draft picks by Lou Nanne. Some of his first guys, Bobby Smith and such. Hartsburg was like way early. Tom McCarthy, 20 years of age. Tom McCarthy, only 20 years of age. Steve Payne, 22. Al McAdam was not. Al McAdam, I believe, was a teammate of Lou Nanne's earlier. Brian Maxwell was also pretty young. He might have been right before Lou Nanne. And guys like Polish and stuff. Paul Schmier, again, it's just, the guy never did a whole lot. And just imagining him as a captain, a guy that no one's ever freaking heard of, basically. I mean, you have to really, really know a lot of hockey history. Now, he had some good seasons in the World Hockey Association, but it didn't translate to the NHL. He did well for the Edmonton Oilers in the late 70s. He came to the National Hockey League with the Northstars and the Whalers, and it's like his career just died. Plus a lot of penalty menaces and that physical guy. Okay, that's great, but there wasn't a whole lot of success in the NHL. He just did way better in the World Hockey Association, Cleveland Crusaders. Generally speaking, this wasn't the NHL. Even though Edmonton ended up being a spectacular team, it just wasn't, it wasn't an overall great situation in terms of competition. Edmonton did translate very well to the NHL, but other teams didn't. You didn't hear about Cleveland Crusaders, San Diego Mariners. That's interesting. And, of course, California Golden Seals, which he played with. That's kind of cool. The Dallas Blackhawks, the CHL. Dallas Blackhawks. Vancouver Canucks. He played all over the place. It's kind of like the ABA and the NBA in the 70s, and then in the NHL you had the WHL and the NHL. It's kind of interesting how similar things happened in the 1970s. You kind of had offbeat leagues and all that, and players translating and others not translating. And Paul Schmier, I don't think he translated very well to the National Hockey League versus the World Hockey Association. So sometimes that's just how it goes. But it's just a damn shame. It's too bad that this Northstars team either didn't have that Steve Yzerman years later, which would have been a great help, and of course ultimately when Lou Nanne had to trade away Dino Ciccarelli, he got a great player in return in Larry Murphy, and then Bobby Clark trades away Larry Murphy for Jim Johnson. I've been bitter about that forever. I don't need to bring it up every show, but I'm bringing it up again because I'm waxing nostalgic, and sometimes going for the tough guy versus the talented guy is stupid. It's just plain stupid. And I don't know, as good as Bobby Clark was kind of energizing the North Stars after a couple of crappy seasons, it was, that was not one of his better moves. It was interesting, though, to see Brian Propp score one of the important goals in that Philadelphia series. It's too bad. I mean, Brian Propp lost the Stanley Cup there, lost it years later, I believe in '87, to the Edmonton Oilers, and then in '91 lost to the Pittsburgh Penguins as a member of the North Stars. Just kind of a crying shame. Certain guys, as great as they were, and good teams they're on, and never seem to bring home the Stanley Cup. Sometimes that's just how it goes, and unfortunately a lot of these guys never did. Dino Ciccarelli never got to win a Stanley Cup, even though he was on the Detroit Red Wings all those great seasons. It's a doggone shame. Right after, 95, 96, he played in the 95 finals, so he was banged up, and that was a kind of a weird season and all that because of the lockout. Or that one was a strike. It wasn't a lockout yet. That was a strike. And then in 96, 97, he went to Tampa, had a great season still, considering he had 35 goals, but not with Detroit. That was still a fairly new expansion team, and no Stanley Cup. Just, damn, I feel bad for Dino Ciccarelli, guys like that. You could go on forever. All those great seasons with Detroit, including the year they knocked us out in 91-92, and ultimately they knocked us out again in a single-game situation where the North Stars were fighting for their playoff lives in the final game of the season and ultimately missed the playoffs. And that was it. And the St. Louis Blues made the playoffs and all that. Sorry about this background noise. But that was an unfortunate deal there. But, it does show Lou Nanne did put together a pretty good team, I would have to say, and then started making mistakes earlier on. It's like there was no pressure on Lou Nanne really starting out, even though there's always pressure on every general manager, but at the beginning days, he put together some real nice players, and then as the years wore on, some of the drafts weren't as good. They just weren't, and that's a damn shame at the end of the day. It just is. It's like you just want to kind of comb over the North Stars drafting history and such. Craig Hartsburg, he was a 6th overall pick. He ended up having a pretty decent career as a defenseman. Tom McCarthy, guys like that. Neil Broden. See, that's another one. That's a great pick. I mean, third round, 42nd overall, so it's not like it was that low. But considering how great he was before the injury later on in his career, awesome pick by Lou Nanne. And, of course, it's a homer pick, but it's a great pick. And Don Beaupre, man, he had 8 assists. But, of course, no goals. Only a couple guys scored goals from the pipes there. Fascinating stuff. You look at the 81 draft, there wasn't not a whole lot to get excited about. At the end of the day, Scott Bukestad was okay. He was a later pick. Pat Micheletti was a 9th round pick and only had 2 goals, pardon me. And, of course, had a pretty bad knee injury. Brian Bellows was an awesome pick in 1982. So some people would say that the North Stars could have done better. It kind of is what it is. I mean, could they really? Phil Housley would have probably been a better pick. But other than that, Brian Bellows was one of the best. Andrew Chuck went on to Buffalo, had an extremely successful career as well. So it's guys like that, Phil Housley, Andrew Chuck, Pat Verbeek versus Brian Bellows. I'd rather have Brian Bellows. So it certainly wasn't a bad pick. Gord Kluchak did a heck of a lot worse, and his career was very short-lived for the Boston Bruins. So I can't complain about that pick whatsoever. At the end of the day, by Lou Nanne. It's just, again, the Brian Lawton one was disappointing. And of course, the number one pick in 1981 wasn't too exciting either. Only 13 career points. Brian Lawton, he just only 266 and 483. That's not good. Mitch Messier, that's funny. Yeah, we had an opportunity to have Mark Messier as well. That one makes me cry. But then, you look at some of these drafts, like 84 was nothing, almost nothing. All you got was Ken Hodge out of it. Everyone else did nothing. So, Lou Nanne had some slim years there. That was Riseborough-like a bit. 86, a little bit better, but not really. The guys that made it but didn't do anything. So, unfortunate there. And then Mike Modano was his last first-round pick, and it was very successful at the end of the day. It was kind of like a Lou Nanne, look at new Lou Nanne and the job he did leading into that 81 team and beyond during those couple of years there, that couple of year span where the Northstars had opportunities to go far, but ultimately, unfortunately, did not bring home the Stanley Cup. Really, his last good pick until Modano was Brian Bellows, to be quite honest, and very successful. It's too bad Brian Bellows, he couldn't have been on that team earlier, but obviously still very successful run. And some of those guys got a couple years older and were a little bit more experienced and ready to go, but they never got back to the final until 91. And Bobby Smith was traded away and was reacquired by Bobby Clark and all that. Oh boy, the dream. But it's just Minnesota sports, one way or another. If it's the North Stars, if it's the Vikings, Minneapolis Lakers probably wouldn't have been as successful after their spectacular run at the beginning. That's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes that's just how things go at the end of the day. When you're hoping for a much more successful franchise, I guess they just don't happen here very often unless it's Gopher hockey in the 70s or something along those lines. I guess Lynx basketball. Yeah, it's better than nothing, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, the success level isn't where you want it all the time. So I wanted to wax nostalgic a little bit now. We can dive a bit into your questions on Twitter. At Brave the Wild. At Brave the Wild is where you'll go there. Give that a follow if you could. Facebook.com/BraveTheWild.Minnesota. Facebook.com/BraveTheWild.Minnesota. So we'll go there first this time and then wrap up with the Twitter where it's a little bit more, obviously a lot more engagement, or so I believe, right? So May the 4th, the last episode was April 9th, of course. That was looking at the Minnesota Wild all-time team. Someday I should do a North Stars one, but I just, unfortunately, don't go back far enough. I wish I could. And of course, yes, the New Jersey Devils just won the Stanley Cup on NHL Network. Yay. But no, it was cool to see a very bearded, very grizzly-looking Bill Guerin pretty earlier in his career there, but a big old beard. And you got to see Neil Broughton finally get his Stanley Cup. Unfortunately, he didn't get it in 81 or 91 with the North Stars, even though it was a very successful run. Martin Brodeur, his first of three. Boy, does he look young there. Because you see him in all those commercials nowadays. What is it? Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I can't do the accent right. For your midlife crisis. I'm sorry. French Canadian accent. Maybe a Mercedes for your midlife crisis. Stuff like that. But, I don't know. Claude Lemieux. Claude Lemieux. Anybody old enough to remember the 90s in the NHL and Claude effing Lemieux? Heck, he won the Stanley Cup with the Montreal Canadiens, didn't he? Back in '86. As did Chris Chelios. He was a Montreal Canadian, if you can believe it. Ultimately, Chicago native and played for the bleeping Blackhawks for a long time. This and that. Yes. Claude Lemieux. Ugh. Give it to Brodeur instead, not Claude Lemieux. Oof. Mario Lemieux, I can understand. He's a legend, man. Legend. As much as it hurt watching him hold that beautiful maple-leafed Conn Smythe trophy in Met Center. Yeah, that sucked, but at the same time, he's a freaking legend. He's so freaking good. So, let's get to the Facebook page. I was talking about us from MNW Prospects, MNW Prospects. Look that up, and I will have a link to that in the show description. MNW Prospects, absolutely awesome. Justin Backey, I guess that's how it's pronounced. I always called him Justin Back, and I hope he's not annoyed, but I guess it's Backey, according to Michael Russo. That's how he pronounced it on his podcast. Justin Backey got in, and of course, again, MNW Prospects got in the article. He got in Michael Russo's article on The Athletic, pardon me. Do join that if you haven't yet. Of course, Michael bleeping Russo. So cool. Just unbelievable. And he mentioned all of us in there. All of us in the MNW Prospects that work with him, myself. So I got in the article. I can't even believe it. So, as Michael Russo was saying, Becky's date night, of course, is dinner at Cosetta and a Wild game. He owns a half dozen Wild jerseys. He drags his family to development camps and open practices. He collects Wild and Northstars memorabilia along with fellow fans Pavel Burnett of MNW Process. You recognize him? Czech Republic? The Czech? Yeah. Can you believe it? Joey Owygen in The Athletic. Yeah. Brandon Quast. Yep. And Chad Walski. Isn't that cool? He contributes to Facebook and Twitter group Wild Prospects and Young Players. Yep, MNW Prospects. It's actually ultimately called Wild Prospects and Young Players, but I always kind of do the at MNW Prospects or Facebook.com/MNW Prospects. That's how you can join those. But yeah, it's ultimately Wild Prospects and Young Players. That's the name of the page, but I always kind of go with the way it comes out so you can find it. You're more likely to find it that way, but I suppose you could either way. Nice picture of him with his son there and his wife, couple of kids there and his wife. Very cool. Nice little lovely family there where they got in The Athletic and they mentioned us. I mean, thank you, Justin, so much for mentioning myself and the others there. Pavel, Brandon, and Chad Walski there. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? I mean, isn't that cool? Thank you, and thank you, Michael Russo. I tweeted Michael Russo about it. I probably made too many mentions in the frickin' tweet. That might be why he's like, okay, whatever. That's why he didn't respond, but hey, I had to mention everybody. Hey, and because I got mentioned, I mean, it's only fair, right? I mean, I wouldn't dare not mention everybody. But Michael Russo did not respond. It's okay. He probably doesn't know me well enough. But again, I just can't thank Justin and Michael Russo there enough for getting myself and the others in there. Freaking cool. So there you go. The latest rumored playoff format involves 24 teams. I don't know why there's a sad face. Who's sad? Anthony Rongo, why are you sad? Why are you sad? Other than, I don't think it's disappointing, but the latest rumored format involves the Minnesota Wild facing off against the Vancouver Canucks, Schmucks, which I think we could win that series. Of course, we would be the underdog, and the winners would be playing against the Colorado Avalanche. It would involve, in the Western Conference, 4 teams would get the first round bye, which they're like the original. They would be they're not the original. They'd be like the Elite 8 type of teams. So St. Louis Blues would get the first round bye. The winner of Calgary-Winnipeg would face off against the St. Louis Blues. I do believe Calgary would win that series. I think Minnesota can beat the Vancouver Canucks, so I think Calgary and St. Louis would face off. In that one, St. Louis would probably win that. We'll come back. Minnesota, Colorado. We can certainly beat the Colorado Avalanche, but I'm sure most people would favor them. Far be it from me to pick the Minnesota Wild to lose to the Colorado Avalanche, though. The only time we lost to them was when we were favored, when we won the division. So far be it from me to pick the Minnesota Wild to lose to the Colorado Avalanche as an underdog, because we've never lost to the Colorado Avalanche as an underdog in a playoff series. We're 2-0, and we're 2-0 on 3-0 historically on the road in Game 7. Freaking awesome. Vegas Golden Knights, which I'm happy about, would have a first round bye. They would face off against the Phoenix Coyotes or Nashville Predators. I think Phoenix there, maybe. Nashville's better, but I think maybe Phoenix might be more of the kind of team that would be on an influential run. Blackhawks and Oilers, you got to go with the Oilers there. Come on. I mean, as good as the Blackhawks are, the Oilers are better. They would face off against Dallas. That's a first-round bye team if they make it. Philly. So in the Eastern Conference, the byes are Boston, Tampa, Washington Capitals, and Philadelphia Flyers. Congratulations, Chuck Fletcher and Ron Hextall for doing a good job putting that team together. Again, anything not so good that I said about Ron Hextall last summer when he was a candidate for Minnesota, even if he was a dark horse candidate, I'm still apologizing for that because he did a good job. It just wasn't immediate. He had a scorched earth approach that ended up producing a pretty good team not too long later. It didn't even take that long. You got your goalie of the future. You're in good shape there at Philly. Ron Hextall gets credit for that much more than Chuck Fletcher. Believe me. Just like these last two drafts, Paul Fenton's getting the credit. I'm sorry, he has to get the credit. As much as we might not like the guy, he drafted very well, and a lot of us are happy about it. Guys like Hovanov, Beckman, and all that. I mean, you gotta recognize what he did. You gotta recognize that. So let's keep moving here. Boston Bruins, who I think would be the favorite to win it all this year. I really still stand by that. But who knows what kind of momentum they'd have after this long shutout here, this long layoff. They've been furloughed, basically. Yes. Toronto would face off against the Columbus Blue Jackets in the first round. Toronto's talent and all that, they need to win that play-in game or series, a three game series or whatever it would be, best of 5. Maybe it's best of 1. Maybe it's just a quick play-in. I don't know. I think it'd be best of 5 or something. Toronto's got to beat Columbus, right? Toronto's got to beat Columbus. And then we all know what happened when Toronto's going to play Boston, though. We all know what would happen then. It's not going to be good. Tampa Bay, New York Islanders, and Florida Panthers. Panthers have a lot of talent and they're well coached, but the New York Islanders are well coached also. And my God, that's a good team. That's a good New York team, man. I got a lot of respect for that New York Islanders franchise, obviously. And maybe they would honor that 40th anniversary in the ultimate way, but I don't think they're going to win the cup. But I think New York would beat Florida to face off against Tampa. Carolina Hurricanes and New York Rangers would face off against each other for the rights to play against the first round by Capitals. And then Pittsburgh versus Montreal would face off against Philadelphia after the bye. So Calgary, I have Calgary beating Winnipeg. St. Louis would beat them. Colorado versus Minnesota. Minnesota beats Colorado. Minnesota, St. Louis next round. St. Louis wins and goes to the West Finals. Yes, so we get to the second round, we lose again, damn it. And St. Louis goes to the West Finals. I think Vegas also comes out. I think they beat the Stars and the Nashville and all that. I think the Stars beat Edmonton, but I think Vegas beats the Stars. And it's Vegas versus St. Louis in the West Final. Tampa and Boston and all that. Boston easily beats Toronto again, 4-1 or 4-0, something like that. I think Boston outlasts Tampa Bay in a 6 or 7 game series. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, we know who's going to win that one. Oh, I don't want to see this again. I don't want to see the Capitals, but I think the Capitals and the Boston Bruins face off in the East Finals, and you're going to see Boston versus boy. I think is it going to be a rematch of last year? I think Boston versus Vegas. I think Boston and Vegas go in the final and Boston wins the cup. That's just my guess. It's all just random. It's all guessing. It is what it is. So that's my quick little thing. We'll see what happens if that's really going to be what it is. At Brave the Wild. And a shout out also before I get too far. Minnesota Wild Global. Thank you, Scott Cavendish, for having me on board that page and for allowing me to post links on the page as well. Thank you, Scott Cavendish. You're an awesome guy here out of Minnesota for founding this page and having me as one of the founding members and such. And Cut Pavel and Chad Walski, David Kostick, Chance Kostick. We could go on forever. Awesome people. Kathy Main. Awesome people on that page. Michael Fick. Awesome people there and such. So let's get to that Twitter account finally. I thought I had it up and I guess I didn't. Tom Hayen, yep, and I'm saying it correct, I hope, right, Derek? Derek Felska, Tom Hayen. Boy, that's a lot of posts since the last one, and I hate those damn masks. Ugh, I still hate masks. Still hate them. Cool. Yep, Derek Felska posting, tweeting to me about OHL, Niagara Ice Dogs, and the Everett Silvertips. I like those Silvertips ones. They look kind of like they don't look like the Northstars, do they? They look cool, though. It looks cool. Obviously, the logo doesn't, but I mean the colors, the team colors. Maybe they look like Dallas a little bit. Ice Dogs are cool. The logo's cool there, and I think the jersey's cool for the silver tips, and the name is kind of cool as well. Look at all those Truth Jaw jerseys. Derek was giving me the shout-outs and all that. I can't thank him enough. Always. Okay, April 7th, so that was the last episode. Derek Felsko was saying, check out some great NHL and MN Wild talk with Brave the Wild. He discusses who would be on the Minnesota Wild all-time team, pardon me, I'm talking too fast, as well as fan questions from Jay Bushy, Tom Hayen, and MN Soda. Yep, that was awesome. MN Soda 24. Thank you. So, Derek Felska was saying, and it's at Crease and Assist. Again, awesome writer is Derek Felska. That is a great blog. I highly recommend you follow that and read, because his knowledge of hockey is insane. Derek Felska is he is an encyclopedia of hockey on all levels, especially the NHL. But I mean, he has a lot of knowledge in general in hockey, and he knows a lot of people too. So he is a source of hockey information. He tweets me saying, "Here's an older version of the Acadie Bathurst Titan." Yep. I'm probably mispronouncing that already. And that was that cool looking logo with that Viking-like helmet. I will take a picture. Yeah, that is really cool. I will take a picture of some of my major junior jerseys when I get home. I used to have, he used to have the that by Cameo Drakkar jersey, but I gave it to a friend of mine. At MN Soda got it for me for my birthday. Isn't that cool? Pretty cool people. See, that's what I love about hockey people. You guys are the greatest. Because I remember Derek just recently sent me a shirt also just recently of Cape Breton Screaming Eagles, or Cape Breton Eagles, pardon me. And it sounds like Sean Boudreas is no longer going to be affiliated with the Minnesota Wild. It sounds like we're losing his rights, so that really sucks. Sounds like we're not going to be keeping Sean Boudreas, so that's disappointing. But hopefully we'll have more prospects with the Cape Breton Eagles there. We'll see what happens. It just is what it is sometimes. Yep, sometimes that's how it goes. Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, of course. And yes, when he was talking about, Derek was talking about the OHL teams. That was these WHL Everett Silvertips, OHL Niagara Ice Dogs. Niagara Ice Dogs. This year I covered for the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League and the British Columbia Hockey League, BCHL. And I'll most likely be resuming that role if this ever starts up again. Hopefully things don't repeat themselves for back in the day. Lovely picture, but I don't like the mask, though. That's of the picture he posted there of a nice girl there. But I don't like masks. I hate all that stuff. Justin Back was saying, "That's excellent news. Thanks for the tag." So, he was saying, yep, Derek Velsko was saying a nominee for the Bill Hunter Memorial Trophy presented by Remax Western Addison. Okay, yep, that's the guy we got from Pittsburgh. Addison played a leading role on the Hurricanes defense. Yep, pretty cool. Yep, WHL's Hurricanes there. Cool. Yep, Minnesota. There we go, Minnesota. Check it out, Minnesota sports fans. Minnesota said, "This weekend I was inspired to begin working on my next amateur documentary, North Star State, a complete history of the Minnesota North Stars." Wow, isn't that cool? A video to get the idea out. Thanks again to Tim Mahoney for supporting indie film. Very cool. Very, very cool. I recommend Minnesota's work there on YouTube and such. Very, very cool. Keep that coming. Keep that coming. Yep, keep him coming, Minnesota. And yes, major shout out to him again. Derek Felska says, "If the rumored Wild alternate jersey is a Wild logoed North Stars color sweater, should the team take the opportunity to ditch the Christmas colors altogether, or no? Please retweet." I should have said something. I apologize. I would love to get the North Stars colors back, so I would say yes also. And I would never say, meh, don't care. I would say, yeah, much as I love the Christmas colors and it's kind of our identity and everything, if you could bring back the Minnesota North Stars colors, I'd be all in. I apologize for not, I must have been, I was caught up in that lawn cleanups around that time. I'm sad. Anthony Crane says, "I'd be disappointed if they pay tribute to the Dallas Stars' heritage." Ty Sandstrom says, "I'd like to see the Wild imagined in the green and gold for a third jersey." But yeah, it would just be third jersey, so I'm all in for that. But it would need to be an absolute perfect rebrand to make it permanent. I would absolutely love it, though. I would really love it. If it was a third jersey, no question. Oh, okay, I see. Yep, Crease and Assist. Yep, he posted the article there on April 28th. Yep, I checked that out. Awesome. NHL Scouting Final Rankings Movement Tracker. Who fell and who rose up in the ranks for this year's draft. Check it out. Awesome. The Sports Daily. That's where Crease and Assist resides. Derek Felska says, so the NHL is looking at moving up this year's entry draft. What is the Wild's greatest chance or greatest area of need in regards to team prospect? Well, it's definitely top 6 center / offense. Yes, so I agree with that. 83% support that, or should I say 84. Tom Hayen was replying to kind of everybody here. He said, this is an easy one in terms of first round picks. You don't draft a goalie while Capo is still in the pipeline, and there is no earthly reason to take a D-man that high unless either Suter, Spurge, Dumba, or Joe Bro, Jonas Brodin is getting dealt, and Addison has quit playing hockey. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Tom Hayen. Yeah, because, I mean, we're pretty full right now at defense, and you got some good prospects down in Iowa and in the juniors, like, again, Addison especially. But, I mean, Belpedio, Brennan Menell, those guys need a shot. Mike at Mokov62 says, how about a player who can score? And then had like big eyes there. That's kind of funny. I agree. NHL 95 confessions indeed. Interest. Yep, NHL 95. Whether it's true or not, this is one of the most entertaining comments I've seen in any one of my videos. I went on an emotional roller coaster ride for about 12 seconds. So Tim McHugh says, that's a hell of a story. Must have a little like winning the actual cup. Derek says, I just left my own little epic on that same YouTube video. Okay, what's going on here? He says, it was the summer of 95, and it was Beach Week. For months, I had been regarded as the best NHL 95 player in the state by my close friends, and there was this guy, John, who was regarded as the best player by his friends. So the matchup was set on Rogers Street in Dewey Beach, Delaware, in June of 1995. So that's NHL 94. Yep. There must have been 20 to 35 people watching this long-anticipated game between us. John took a 5-0 lead going into the third period. My friends were down on me, and I was getting heckled to no end by John's friends. I came back like a tornado and tied it 5-5 in the third and won in OT 6-5. Wow. My friends carried me on their shoulders down the steps of the beach house and down the street. I'm 43 now. Yep, 3 years older than I am. And that's still one of the greatest moments of my life. That's pretty cool. Nice story, Al. Al DePencho. Awesome. In Delaware, huh? Dewey Beach, Delaware. Cool, man. Cool. Well done, mate, as they'd say in Australia. Brandon Molesky. Tweeting to Brandon Molesky, are you? Brandon Molesky was asking, you could only select players whose name starts with the same letter as yours. What's your lineup? Oh, great. I should have responded to this. Shoot. Because with me, that'd be all J's. Shoot. Maybe I'll try to get back to that on a future episode. I can't jump into that at this second. I probably should have, though. Okay, so now we're getting into the current stuff. I'm going to type in that. So to ask questions, type in hashtag BTW, hashtag BTWMN. That's the best way to go, and you'll get everything there. So you get the questions. See if they load here. Would be very much appreciated when there's a loads or ad. That's funny. Good. Yep, got a couple these from a couple hours ago, and then you get into January. Okay, so Derek Felska says, which play-in matchup, I'm guessing he means which play-in matchup do you think is the most intriguing besides Wild versus Canucks? Okay, the play-in matchup. I apologize. So that's what you meant. The play-in matchup. Okay, so yeah, they are play-in games, and then it's the regular 16. I see. Yep, that makes sense. Obviously, Minnesota, Vancouver is a cool one. Pittsburgh, Montreal. Some of these, it's like the opponent's kind of weak. Might be Nashville and Phoenix, because you never Phoenix. I just called them Phoenix. Nashville and Arizona. You know what though? It's got to be Edmonton versus Chicago, because think about it. Edmonton's got some superstars at the top. Chicago's got superstars. We can say what we want about the Blackhawks and how they've fallen off the map, but you got Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, guys like that, and against, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, guys like that. Both of the goaltenders are kind of meh, but I suppose Chicago's got better goaltending, maybe, if Crawford's healthy. If they traded Robin Leonard to the Vegas Golden Knights. So I'm going to go with Chicago versus Oilers, because what if Chicago goes on a run? Because they could. If they beat the Oilers, they could go on a run. So, Carolina versus New York doesn't do a whole lot. Montreal and Pittsburgh, it's just Pittsburgh's going to win that. New York Islanders versus Florida, that's probably second, only because excellent coaches there, right there. And obviously Minnesota, Vancouver, sweet history and all that. Calgary's got to be Winnipeg, right? I would hope. So I will go with Chicago versus the Edmonton Oilers. Chicago versus the Edmonton Oilers, Derek. Yep. So we'll continue. Tom Hayen says, assuming KK, Kirill Kaprizov, does indeed sign with the organization, would it be the most Minnesota Wild thing to not at least start the season with he and Fiala on the same line? Oh, boy. I suppose so, yeah. I mean, it would be disappointing if they didn't. Because, Fiala, even though he's a natural left shot, he plays on the right side. And he likes to play on the right side. And he's had a lot of success playing there. So, and then Kirill Kaprizov is left. The only problem is, again, who's the center? Is it frickin' Cunnin? Or what the heck do you do? Eric Stahl, is he too slow? Boy. Koivu's too retired, possibly. Man, that's the problem. The center position is really tough up the middle. It really is, isn't it? Derek Felska was saying, because he was, Tom Hayen was tweeting Derek Felska's tweet out. Derek said, with the NHL close to a summer return and the draft looming closer, do you have any Minnesota Wild questions burning on your mind? Okay, so that's what that was, to get people's attention to join in. It would be a Minnesota thing, I suppose. I mean, I think you got to put them on the same line. I think that'd be cool. Tom Hayen again says, with the 2020-21 season starting sometime after Thanksgiving, how will the effed up offseason affect the players? Probably not too well. This whole thing, apparently, current situation, I think they're showing guys practicing, unless this is old. Now it's old. I wish it was current. I don't say Carter Hart there. Philadelphia Flyers, baby. But no, it's not going to be good. No, it's not going to be good. There's some talk about, was it Patrick Laine? He's not ready. He's just saying he is absolutely nowhere near ready to play NHL hockey right now. But partially that's on Patrick Laine, isn't it? A little bit? I mean, but then again, I suppose they couldn't even go to rinks. That's the worst part. I mean, that's where I think living in fear is a big problem, and I really loved, I loved what Eric Stahl said on the Minnesota Wild podcast most recently. Download that and hear what he said nearing the end. When he said, I'm not somebody who likes to live in fear. He wants to, he does not want to live in fear. He's not scared of everything under the sun, basically, which I think a lot of people are right now, and I don't think that's good. I don't think it's good. And to just live in fear, you mean you can't even skate at the rink? Are you really touching anybody? Just skate at the damn rink. Just let people skate at the damn rink. I think living in fear is not good. Tom Hayen continues. He says, with the Iowa squad having some promising young offensive players, does it now resonate how incredibly ridiculous the Zuccarello signing was and is? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It really sucks. Zuccarello's got some talent, but he's over 30. He's like, 32, 33, $6 million a year, and no move clause, and 5 years and stuff. It's like 4.5 or 5. The rest of this quote-unquote season. I don't know. It's depressing, isn't it, Tom? It's really depressing. Yeah, it's a bad signing. That's where, there was one thing Paul Fenton was good at. It's the draft. At least so we want to believe, the Adam Beckmans and such. Hopefully those guys pan out. But free agency, I think he was kind of crappy. Fletcher was too, obviously. He was crappy at free agency. He was mediocre at the draft. Awful at trades was Fletcher. Awful trades. Awful. Riseborough sucked at everything pretty much, except for expansion draft. He was awesome at that. He did a great job at the expansion draft and made a good choice for the coach. After that, it was just a bunch of, it was a steaming pile of you-know-what. It really was ever since. You look at his drafts, the last, about a three-year period or so for Lou Nanny that were really, really, really bad. That's Doug Riseborough's entire tenure outside of Marian Gaborik and Mikko Koivu, Pierre-Marc Bouchard, guys like that, Brent Burns. He did a couple of first-round picks that were productive, and after that, it was just crap for the most part, with getting lucky here and there. And and then he couldn't even hit on first-round picks for his life after Brent Burns. Didn't get anybody, and I mean anybody. We'll continue now. Jay Bushy, welcome back, buddy. It's been a little while, hasn't it? What's the likelihood of Kaprizov signing if the season is extended and next season may not start until November or December? Well, so far they're saying no. So far the NHL's saying no. So if the season is extended, he will sign and he will play next season, most likely. I do think he will skate up for the Minnesota Wild next season. This current remaining thing, they just say no, and I would hope that he's going to be willing to comply with that. Apparently, he's finally hired an agent, according to Michael Russo, most recently on, I believe, I can't remember if it was Barrero or the Paul Allen show. I can't remember. I think it was Barrero. But he's finally hired an agent, so I think they're gonna have to make that adjustment. Like, I know you want to play now, but you're gonna have to wait till next year. That's just, the NHL's not moving on that one. Tom Haynes says there is zero, none, not a zilch chance the Minnesota Wild extending Koivu, right? I agree. I don't see Bill Guerin signing Mikko Koivu. The way he moved on from Bruce Boudreau, obviously not really super related, but it does show you he's more of a business guy, or he's all business and such. And I don't think the Wild signed Koivu. If anything, it'd be like a 1-year deal for like a small amount of money, like $3 or $4 million. And I just don't think so. I don't think Koivu's coming back. I don't think he's coming back. It's a shame because it's like you kind of could use him still, but at the same time, it is what it is, and you got to open up roster spot and cap space. Hopefully you can sign a center of some sort. So it can at least be a second line level, but we'll probably have to play first line with this team. At least a top 6 type of guy, if humanly possible. Even though there's like one in a million that are any good, it seems like, that's what it feels like anyway around here. Derek Felska, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very concerned or 1 being not concerned at all, how concerned should Minnesota Wild fans be that Kirill Kaprizov has not signed the contract yet with the team? Well, the whole agent situation, so 10's the most concerned, 1 not at all. I'd say it's like a 3. For me, I'm like a 3. I'm a little bit concerned because you're never satisfied until they stand on the dotted line. But I'd say a 3. That's my guess. If you're willing to respond, what level would you be at? Personally, me, I'd say a 3. Like, I'm mildly concerned, but not really. Obviously, 5 would be like, kind of like, oh boy, 50-50, and 10 being like, we're screwed. No, I'm at a 3 right now on that one. Justin Becky says, do you feel they are trying too hard to complete the 19 and 20 season just to possibly affect the 2021 season? It is hard to say either way with the unknowns, but would like to hear your opinion, Brave the Wild, Minnesota. It's like yes, even though it's like there's just that weird what could have been. That's, I think, what's driving a lot of us crazy as fans, or just people like me who always want to see a conclusion to a season, like the '94 baseball season that never got to finish. The Montreal Expos had the best record in baseball. And I like the Montreal Expos, and damn it, that would have been really cool. That was actually when the Yankees just started to get it good again for the first time in about, how many years was it? About 15 years? Because that's 94. I don't know if Justin Backey remembers 1994, but I do. I'll just say there's just that itch, like what could it been? And then now we'll see. That figures Stewart and Chuck Fletcher. Chuck Fletcher. And frickin' Chris Stewart. God, figures. I know you guys love Chris Stewart. I know. That's Philadelphia Flyers going on here. Chris Stewart. Makes me laugh. Okay, I better get back to you, Justin. I'm sorry. Do you feel they are trying too hard to complete it? Just to pause. I am concerned about the next season, yes. But I think the effect is going to be worse on this current season than the next one. It kind of depends on how long they drag it out. Man, it is almost like they should just cancel everything, isn't it? It is almost like they should just cancel everything, but they're just scared of losing money. That's the problem. Just cancel everything and restart like in September. So you get football training camp in August. I just want this to be exactly the way it has been. It's so wonderful. Football training camp August. Hockey training camp September. Basketball training camp October. I mean, it's just boom, boom, boom. It's the most wonderful thing. I don't like the weather as much that time of year as I do this time of year, except for today. The last couple of days have been humid as hell, but normally May is a little nicer than this. The humidity is usually around August, unfortunately. But no, I mean, it's such an exciting time of year when you get all those sports revved up again. So I can understand your concern there in a big way, where it could mess up 2021. There is that itch, but maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I think I am on your side, Justin. if they should just kind of say screw it and just start at the normal time. And because guys would come back, guys might get hurt, like those weird lockout seasons where guys get hurt real easy, especially in the NBA. There was ACL after ACL, and some of those guys just didn't come back real good. So, I believe that's it. I'm going to refresh once to see if anything new popped up, but I believe that's it. See, odds are people are going to jump in early right away, and that's it. That's why I was willing to do the show now. Plus, it was just a golden opportunity to go for it. Good timing because I was alone at home here. Yeah, these are older, March 1st. Yep. So that should be everything at this stage, God willing. So I want to thank all you guys for your interaction. Always fun. I had to reminisce about the old 1981 Northstars. Amazingly, this got to an hour, just like a normal show during the regular season. That's crazy. But I had to reminisce a bit. I wanted to get into that. And, of course, getting back to talking to you guys is just the coolest thing ever. I can't thank you guys enough for interacting with me and keeping it coming. Thank you, Derek. And even on a holiday for taking the time to write that little tweet out. I can't thank you enough for that, brother. That meant a lot to me. And I just, today was just, it was itching to me. I want to talk about the 81 North Stars, and I want to get back to talking to you guys. And thank you for taking the time to tweet and ask your questions, and keep them coming again. If I could maybe mention them on the next show, even if it's like a couple of weeks from now or something, because I'll probably get another itch to come on again in a week or 2 or 3, something like that. 1 to 3 weeks, I'll have that itch to come back, maximum a month, something along those lines. I don't think it'll be 6 weeks again, which I believe it was since the last show, but that's how it goes sometimes. Usually does this time of year. But God willing, we'll be back soon. We'll be talking about the restarted season, and hopefully you guys can stay healthy. But I kind of do agree with Justin Backey a bit that maybe it's really not worth it, and we should just say hell with it, because there'll be too much of an asterisk next to the Stanley Cup champion anyway. As fun as it would be to watch, you don't want guys getting hurt, and you don't want a weird season the next year, or it affects 2 seasons instead of 1. That's the one major fear going into this. With that said, I'd like to get you guys you're free to join on with audio submission. Obviously, hashtag, just going on to @BraveTheWild and then asking a question with a hashtag BTWMN. Thank you guys for those of you that do that. And keep them coming. Keep them coming in the future. Anytime. Just put it anytime. It doesn't matter. Even if it's like a couple of weeks before the show, it's still a good question. It's still worthy, as far as I'm concerned, of getting on air. As long as it's even somewhat related to hockey, it's greatly appreciated. This and that. So with that said, again, audio submission, the way you get on there is you just simply use your smart device with a free voice recording application. You open that up, press record, treat it like a phone call, keep it to about 5 minutes or so, but whatever. If you have a lot to say, you have a lot to say. You could go a little longer. Hit stop, save it, and email it to paladinolive@yahoo.com, paladinolive@yahoo.com. That will also be in the show description, of course. I would then convert the file into an MP3 file, thanks to Zumzar.com, which is 100% free. So if you ever need to do that with a smaller size file, convert the file into an MP3 or something else, Zumzar.com is the best way to go. I'm more than willing to give them a free plug because they give me a free service for this show. So it greatly helps. If I ever get audio submissions for this one, Purple Mafia, Timberwolves Explosion, it's just so helpful. So I'm more than happy to give them a free plug, thanks to their service to this show. So, with that said, again, continuing shout-outs to all of you. Derek Felska, Chad Walski, Pavel Burnett, Justin Backey, Brandon Quast, Merrick Skyba, Chad Walski, if I didn't mention him already, David Kostick, Chance Kostick, Scott Cavendish, Kathy Main. You guys are awesome. Thank you. God bless, and we'll talk to you in 1 to 3 weeks is my guess, and, well, we'll see. We'll see if there really is hockey. And if there's a Kirill Kaprizov signing, let's roll, baby. Let's roll.